Hello guys, we are back in this another exciting tutorial. In my last tutorial I taught you guys how to create an abstract ball like this and light it up and render it, and I figured out that there is still more you can do with this, so which is why I ended up creating something like this. I believe you've watched it. Okay, so that was cool, where the ball actually exploded, and what I did was easy. If you've not watched the first tutorial where I actually throw light on how to create this ball, please kindly go and watch that. I will put an annotation on the left hand side of the screen where you can easily click to watch that before you'll be able to follow along with what I'm about to show you. Alright, now we've been able to create this in our last tutorial. Then over here I've animated it to move the way it's moving, and you can see it's just moving around the scene. And what I did was pretty much easy. I grouped the whole thing, then I set a couple of keyframes allowing this to rotate around this plane. Okay, so if I go over to the previous one, abstract, so there is no animation on this one. So what I did was just to set a keyframe by pressing X on the keyboard. Then over here in my channel box, you can see they are all locked down. Then I move few frames, then I'll rotate, I'll move this, move another few frames. By the way, auto key is on. Then oops, I'll rotate the scene, then set a keyframe, I'll move this way, then set another keyframe and move this way. So with that will allow this to move in circle. So after doing this, what I did was to, instead of animating this again, I just copy this keyframe and paste it all the way around. So I'll just go ahead and copy, right click, paste. So repeat the same thing, paste, click, right click, paste. So you can see the ball will continue to move. Another thing you would have done is to loop it by going over to your window, then using your animation graph editor, then you repeat the loop till infinity. So you can actually do that from here. You just go ahead and select all the keyframes, you just come over to this place, post infinity cycle. So that will make sure that this movement is being cycled. So that's another thing you can do instead of doing copy and paste like I did. So that was what I did. I also animated the rotation. So what I did was to set keyframe for the rotation and rotate the object, move forward in time, rotate the object, so that as this is moving it will be rotating alongside. So you can see, so as it's moving it's rotating in that way. So that's what I did over here. So I'm going to open up this one that I'm working on. So that's what I did. Let me go to perspective view. That's what I did all the way around until up to 200 frames, where I allowed the ball to stop at a particular point and started spinning like this. So, and what I did was just to keyframe from this place, then animate the rotation attribute. You can see. Alright, by the way, you are looking at this is actually the camera I rendered out, which when I go to perspective view, you can see the camera. So the camera is just going to show me whatever is seen by the camera is what is going to be rendered out. But I also animated the camera from 200 to 300 to actually zoom close to the ball, so as the ball is spinning. so we have it zooming close to the ball. So let's just do a frame render so that you see how this is looking. You can see, so this is actually how it will look by the time we render it out. So on the viewport it's not going to display that way, but when we render it out, this is how it's going to look like. So what I now did was to render the entire work and take it to After Effects, where I added a lot of other things to it that make it look the way it is. Okay, alright, so you can see the actual quality. So I'm going to close this, then I'll show you how I rendered this. What I did was to go to my render settings, then on the common tab I choose HD 1080, then I make sure I give the file a name. If you don't understand rendering, check my other tutorials on how to render in Maya to Premiere Pro. I also talk more about that. I'll put an annotation on the right hand side corner of the screen for you to actually go to the link where you can learn how to do that. So just give this a name, maybe call it ball, and choose a particular file format because we want this place to be transparent, so that's why we are choosing PNG. So we'll go ahead and choose PNG, portable network graphics. Okay, so that is it. Then this is very important for you to change this to name.extension.ash or name.ash.extension. So from here you're actually going to see where this file will reside on this place from 1 to, so we are rendering up to 300 frames. You can just come over here and type in 300. Alright, so now we have 1 to 300, so it's going to render this as an image sequence. Then under my indirect lighting, I make sure global illumination and final gather is turned on. Then I'm also using a preset, production preset, so that will have the highest quality. So that's what I did. Then I rendered this out, and when I finished rendering this, I brought it to After Effects. So we are moving over to After Effects to look at the rendered work and how we match the whole thing together to give us this. So let me just open it. Alright, so this is where I did all the work in After Effects, and I'm just gonna go over it for you to have a clear understanding of it. Mind you, if you have not used After Effects before, kindly go to my After Effects 101. That will give you the introduction to this particular course. I'll also put annotation on the screen where you can actually watch that. But I believe that those who are watching these tutorials have a pretty much understanding of After Effects and what After Effects does. So this is the abstract composition here. You can see the type is composition. Why this is my image sequence, the one I actually imported. Okay, so where this image is, I can just right click on it and say reveal in Explorer, so it will just take me to the location so that you can see it's an image sequence, the one I rendered out from Maya. So if I double click on any one of them, you can see the transparent grid. So I have this up to 30 of it. So if you're not new to motion graphics, you understand what I mean by image sequence. So when you double click and click on one, you import it as an image sequence. And I created a sequence. I created a composition from this image sequence, which is this composition I have here. Then I have some couple of sounds. So these are sound that I used in the project. Then I have my logo here. Then I have other sound. Then I have this light I created from optical lens flare. Then I also have other sound, then the pre-composition and the shock wave I created that is causing the explosion. Then I have the final the time warp composition that allow me to slow down the footage. So that's all that I did to it. Then if I come over to the abstract, you can see my pre-composition. If I double click on it, then I have all these where I have so many compositions inside of it. So I'm just going to go through each and every one of these composition briefly for you to understand how I module the whole thing together. So over here I have my test, and this test will not display up to this point. Then I have my logo, which is this. Then I have the light. The light is the one I added to this very place. So this light you are seeing here, so this is the actual light. I'll also put a link in the description box where you can download this light if you want to use it for your project. Then what I did was to keyframe it and time it to appear at the exact same time we have the explosion of the circle. Then I have the shock wave, which is this one. If I should solo this layer. Alright, this is a shock wave that I created using some of these effects over here, the fractal noise effect. I'll just put a link in the description box where you can download this shockwave and use it for your own project work. Okay, now you can see that. So what I did was to merge it with the explosion. Let me unsolo this so that you can see it. So you can see I just merge it with the explosion. Okay, then I also added a camera for this. Now one of the things that is very important here is the shattering effect of the sphere, and the way I did that was to come over to, I have a time warp. Then over here where I have this time warp, you can see from here there is no shattering. Then if I come over to my other composition, this is where you can see this is where I have the shattering. Now I made a copy of these because on the upper one, this time warp, I added time warp. You can also do so by going to time warp. Okay, so what I did was just to reduce the speed of this particular layer, you can see, and add some keyframe to it as this is moving. So I added some keyframes in order to slow it down for the explosion to actually work with the effect. Okay, then here I just made duplicate of this clip on top of this one. Then I added not just time warp on it, I added some other effects. So let me throw this time warp close. So I have shatter effect on this. I also have shatter effect on this one. Okay, then I have the fast blur and the tint, the one below. So I have the fast blur and the tint, so which is what is this tint is actually giving it a kind of depth in the background. You can see when I toggle it on and off, you can see. So what I did was to blur the entire clip. You can see I blurred it up to 15%. Alright, so add it below that layer and allow it to work its magic. Then if I double click on the time warp and come over to this place, you can see this the way the light is actually feathering out, and how I did that was to add a CC radial blur to it and increase the amount of CC radial blur. You can see when I turn this off, I don't have those lights, but by the time I turn it back on, I have those lights sticking out. So I just added a 6 radial blow and increase the amount so that I have these lights sticking out from this place. Okay, alright, back to the time warp. All these other ones are sounds that I keyframe to match with the movement of this. Okay, then one other thing I said I will talk about is the explosion, which is where I use the shatter effect from here. What I did was to break this clip into two. So from here we have this. You can see I broke this into two. You can see that. So I have time warp for the shatter, then I have these two as well. This time warp here, which is the one I have here. I have another one, which is this. So what these ones are doing is just to return the timing. Why these ones is where I added the shatter effect. You can see over here on this time warp up, I duplicated this time warp composition, so it's only time warp that is on these two, but this other one is where I have the shatter effect and the fast blow. So that this is actually where the shatter effect started from. So if I turn off the shatter effect on this layer and move this, sorry, it's going to be the one above because this other one is the one having the blow. So if I turn it off, you can see that there is no shatter anymore, so the ball is not being shattered. So it's the shatter effect that is capturing the ball. And what I did for the shatter effect is to add it. Just select this, throw this open, and I added it and increased some of this value. You can pause the video to look at what I use. I use a pattern of glass. Then I also use a custom shatter map of shockwave sequence, which is the shockwave effect that I've added on the composition. Then the repetition, I increase the repetition, which is the amount of these scattered shapes. So I increase it to 70.50. The direction is 12 degrees. Then one other thing is the extrusion, which is the thickness of all this shape is 0.6. So under the forks, I make sure I keyframe the radius, which is what make this to explode. So I keyframe the radius. So if I select this shape and press U to review the keyframes, you can see where I have those keyframes. So this keyframe is actually for the shatter. You can see where I keyframe the radius from this to this for it to work it magic. Then I also, under the physics, I dial down the gravity to 2 so that this will move towards the camera, which is this camera I have below in this place. So that is what is causing this to shatter away, and immediately I created that shatter. Let me just solo this layer. So you can see, so I created the shatter, then I add the shockwave on top of it just to make the explosion look the way it's looking. You can see that. Then in order to blend in the whole thing, I brought in the light. So during the same time when this is exploding, that is when the light is appearing. So the whole thing just sync automatically. So that is the major thing in this composition. There is nothing too much. Every other thing here is sounds that I've keyframed to match the movement of this as this is moving. And at the end of the day, I rendered it out for you to have something like this. have any. um, but for those of you who are used to After Effects, you can pause the video to study the composition, then study all the effects that I've used. Like I said, some of the things I use here that is not in After Effects, such as the shockwave and the lens flare, I will also put the link in the description box where you can download them and use it for your own project, or maybe you want to repeat the same thing that I've done. So whichever way, I believe you've learned something, and don't forget to leave your question in the description box if you have any. I will surely attend to that. Thank you for watching, guys, and do subscribe to this channel because there is more and more tutorials coming your way every 48 hours. Thank you once again. See you next time. Bye.